We are a week and a half away from Christmas, and as you can tell behind me, winter is here. But the good news is our kit has arrived. My name is Rob from Canadian A Homestead, and this is Our Avrame Home. Our kit arrived in 2 separate shipments. The first one before the snow was on the ground, which was excellent because I had to learn how to drive a telehandler and how to operate it, and so it gave us some practice in good dry conditions. The second shipment came when there was already snow on the ground, and so that was a little bit more challenge. We're gonna do a full video about unloading the containers in the coming weeks. All of the materials are sitting at our house site, ready to go. Everything's there, it's covered in tarps, it's protected from the snow, and it's ready for us to start building on our slab, which is what I wanted to talk to you about today. In our previous video, we explained why we chose to build our house on a slab on grade. And before we could build that slab, there was a few things we had to do. For instance, we had to clear land. We talked about that in a previous video. Once the land was cleared, we actually had to do what's called grubbing out, pulling out all of the organic material from the ground, all the roots and branches and stuff. After that was done, our spot where our slab was gonna go got filled in with water from all the rain that we were getting. And so we spent days pumping that water out so that we could bring in the A gravel that we were gonna be putting down as the base for our house. Once that A gravel was in place, we compacted, we used a tamper, we put up the forms, and we got ready for all of the stuff that was gonna go on inside the slab itself. So inside of the slab itself, there's a few components of our house. For instance, all of our drainage plumbing, all of that had to get put in before the actual concrete could get poured. And that went into the compacted A gravel that was the base of the house. We also then had to put on 4 inches of rigid foam that acted as both a vapor barrier and an insulation for a thermal loss. On top of that, we then put our in-floor heating lines as well as some water supply lines to go to what's gonna be our kitchen island and our bathroom, because we can't run that through the walls. So you might be wondering to yourself, how does a self-builder, DIYer with no prior building experience know about all these different things? The truth is that we didn't. And we knew that we weren't gonna know everything, and so there was a few different areas in the build where we want to make sure that we're hiring or at least consulting with professionals so that we don't miss steps or mess something up. And so one of those areas was actually with our concrete slab. We wanted to make sure that we were doing everything properly. And so we called around a lot, and everyone was so booked up, and we started to panic. And just in the nick of time, we had a contractor say, you know what? I don't have enough time to come and put your slab together to actually do the forms and everything. I don't have time to do that, but I could maybe do a consultant thing where I help you, I coach you along, let you do it, but I'll just make sure that everything's done properly. And so we had that, it was excellent. And we did the same thing for our septic system as well. We had someone just consult with us so that we could do all the work and in the end save a lot of money, probably $10,000 at least that we saved by doing it ourselves using consultants. So not only did we need help with our concrete and septic, we also knew that we were going to need help with our plumbing, electrical, and in-floor heating. Those were a few areas where we just knew that we did not want to mess around, we didn't want to mess it up, we wanted to have professionals doing those installations so that nothing would be missed. And even though we hired our professionals, there were still a few mistakes that we made, and here they are. So one of the first issues that came up was as we were putting in our septic tank. When we were digging the hole with the excavator to set that tank in the ground, we hit bedrock. And the place where we hit bedrock would have made it so that our tank was higher than the slab itself, and so when our slab was fully prepped and ready to go for our plumbing to be installed, we had to bring in another 6 truckloads of gravel to actually raise the height of our slab so that all of our plumbing would drain automatically down into that tank. We know that now with the height of the house, with the location of the tank and all that stuff, we have enough fall so that we can have a gravity-fed system, which is what we wanted. The second issue had to do with our well water supply, as well as the supply line for our outdoor wood boiler. We got our plumbing installed, and then afterwards realized that we didn't have the supply lines for both our well or the outdoor wood boiler installed. And so we called those contractors and asked them, and they said, yeah, that usually goes in just before the plumbing. Well, our plumbing was already installed, and so I got to spend a nice, lovely long day digging a trench for those 2 supply lines, 4 feet down underneath the slab, through the A gravel, from the edges of the house all the way to the center where our mechanical room is going to be. I've said a number of times today, there should be step-by-step guide for dummies for how to build a house. And everyone keeps saying that's why you hire a general contractor. So anyway, I should have put this line in 3 weeks ago, and same with the line for our water supply. Like, I should have put it in 3 weeks ago, but now I'm having to dig a trench. The last issue that we came across as we were putting in our slab has to do with the actual size of the slab itself. When it came time for us to put the forms in place, we were looking at the drawings for our engineered slab and realized that there weren't actually measurements showing the exact length and width of the house. It didn't go right to the edges, and so we just turned the page in the drawings to the overall size of the house and used those as the overall dimensions. Somewhere I'm adding 2 inches, but I don't know where they're coming from. The problem with that is that the house is actually meant to overhang the slab by a few inches on all sides. Now, this issue is actually because the drawings that we got from our engineer here in Ontario, Canada, did not include those drawings. This is not an Avrame problem. This has to do with our own engineer, but it was something that we overlooked, and we just went ahead without asking for clarification there. And so to fix this problem, because the slab was actually framed too big, we just added extra layers of foam on the inside of the forms so that when the concrete was poured, it just subtracted 2 inches for each layer of foam, making the slab the proper size. People have said to us, layout and getting prepped to pour whether it's a basement or any other foundation, the layout is the most frustrating and time-consuming part, and I'm feeling that right now. And so, once all of those issues were resolved, everything was fixed, all the stuff was done, the day finally came for us to pour our slab. When that day finally did come, it was so late in the season that we ended up having to use winter concrete, which costs more money because there's some additive or something, and I don't know, ask a concrete guy. But the day finally came, we poured our slab, and it is done. It is beautiful, and it is ready for us to build on it. If you would like to see more information about all this different process from grubbing out the land to the final pour, we're actually going to be releasing 2 videos on our personal YouTube channel, Canadian A Homestead, that you can check out to see how all that stuff played out in greater detail. In our next video, we are going to be showing you what it looks like to unload a house from a shipping container. Stay tuned.